Hey, welcome back to Bobb-z Callahan's Word of Advice. And for today's Word of Advice video, I wanted to talk about, well, what I do when I make all of these Word of Advice videos. And this is basically advice on giving advice. And the reason I wanted to tackle this topic is because I believe there's going to be a time in every single person's life when someone is going to ask us for advice on something. You know, maybe someone is struggling to understand something, or maybe someone's going through a strange or difficult time, and that person has decided to come to you, or maybe even a few people have decided to come to you, and they basically want your input on whatever is on their minds. And if you ask me what I would recommend in any case when you are giving advice, it would be a few things. Number one, let's say, for example, if someone is asking your advice on a situation that you really have not dealt with before, or maybe someone's asking you advice on a topic you have never really thought of before, or you don't have experience with it. If this happens to be the case, when someone is asking of your advice, I would definitely recommend to not try to fake it and give advice on something that you don't know. You know, if you give advice on a subject or an experience which you have not gone through before, then the advice that you give to somebody may not be helpful because you may not have dealt with the subject or the experience before. Now, if you have dealt with an experience or a topic that someone is asking your advice on, then great. You know, that way, if someone is asking you advice on something you've gone through before, then hopefully you'll be able to remember the experience you've gone through and you'll be able to give somebody helpful advice. But if there comes a time when someone's asking you about something you don't really know much about, I would just recommend not faking it. I would definitely recommend referencing your friend or your friends to somebody else. Refer them to somebody that has had experience in whatever issue is on their mind at the time. And also, let us say, for example, that someone is asking your advice on something and maybe you know a little bit about the subject, but you're not 100% sure. What I would definitely recommend is doing some research about whatever topic someone is asking you about, and once you have found some advice which is credible and it makes sense, then go back to that person who is asking you about a certain topic and present what you have found. You know, when someone is asking us our advice on something or a viewpoint on something, there's a good chance that we are not always going to know completely the answer to whatever someone is asking us about. We may know a little bit about something, but we may not know the complete answer about whatever is on someone's mind. So it wouldn't hurt to do some research about the subject that someone is asking you about. And, you know, hopefully you'll find credible evidence and you'll find advice on a subject which makes sense and it's productive and it's healthy advice. And once you find it, go present it to your friend or your friends. And hopefully when you present that advice, your friend or your friends will definitely be happy with what you found. And lastly, if there's any other advice which I would recommend when you are giving advice to somebody, I would definitely recommend that you mean it and that you are truthful when it comes to whatever you are saying. You know, if someone is asking you about a certain habit which they are dealing with, and they're asking your advice on how to deal with it. You know, I would recommend staying totally honest and being truthful and meaning what you are saying. Of course, that's just one example. I can think of plenty of other examples out there in the world which someone might present to you, but overall, we don't want to lie when it comes to giving advice, and we don't want to fake it or try to pretend to mean whatever we are saying to somebody. You know, we should definitely have our heart in the advice that we are presenting, and we should definitely be honest when we are giving advice. I know sometimes when we are honest and we give advice to some people, it may not always be easy, because sometimes if we are giving honest and helpful advice to somebody, especially on a sensitive topic, the person who is hearing what you're saying may have a difficult time at first trying to digest what you have presented to them and what you have said to them. But I believe it is much better to be honest, and it's better to mean what you are saying. Because if you are honest, then at least you can say that you have presented something which you definitely believe, and hopefully the advice that you've given will be productive and helpful to whoever is asking you for advice. So with that, I certainly hope some of the tips I've had to talk about when it comes to giving advice will come in handy. Always be ready for someone who may ask you for your advice. And just definitely take some time to think before you present advice to somebody, because I believe that if you do, then you will find a lot better results if you do that. So I definitely hope it works out for you when you are giving advice to people. And I definitely hope what I've had to talk about in this video will come in handy. And be sure to come back for another word of advice video.